He's sort of acting in a type of Christ because he's taking the responsibility himself for the security of his brother. Well, good morning, y'all.
Ooh, are you like a southern kind of guy?
Well, I'm like a northern kind of guy. You see, we live on a globe, and so south is north now.
Oh, yeah.
So you're from Canada, eh?
Yeah. So, funny thing about that, it's like minus 30 outside Celsius. So that would be minus 15-ish,
minus
20?
20-ish, somewhere in there,
Yeah.
20, 21,
Yeah. So
somewhere cold.
basically, you take the temperature in Texas and then subtract all the warmth.
I was
And humidity.
I was considering a conversation I had with someone who was from, I think, San Antonio in Texas, and their high temperatures, they'll sometimes hit 42 or 43 degrees Celsius,
Yeah.
and we'll hit minus that,
Yeah.
in the winter, and I said to him, if we combined our temperatures, our extreme temperatures, you up there and us up in Alberta, we'd still have to wear a coat.
If you were to grab the average or the mean,
The mean, it'd be like freezing, right?
Yep, it would be.
Well,
I find funny, I have a friend who lives in North Texas, and every year he sends me photographs of his garden. And then I send him photographs of my snow. Because he's harvesting his garden before I can plant mine.
Yeah.
Because he's got like the dry season. That's a thing, I guess, somewhere in this world where you have like a dry season. I don't know what that is. I mean, that's just wildfire season up here. But
Yes.
yeah, so he'll send me photographs of his potatoes that he's just harvested, and I will send him photographs of snow. And every Christmas, he sends me a picture of like his chickens or something. And there's no snow around said chicken.
Right.
It's horribly depressing.
He's causing envy in you.
Causing envy. Yeah, it's his fault that I sin.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Yes, dear Lord, this brother you gave me. Okay. So, on a less serious note, Jamie.
Yeah, we have this habit of doing book reviews before we get into things. It's our intention today to get into Genesis again, but before we do, let me commend to you a work of fiction from, I think, the 1950s. It may have been late 1940s. Ray Bradbury wrote Fahrenheit 451. Did you guys read that book?
No, I haven't.
You ever read that one?
I've heard of it.
Okay, well, there's a in Fahrenheit 451, there's a government agency that's called the fire department. Okay, and the fire department's job is to go around and find people with libraries and burn their libraries.
Oh, wow.
Oh, so the fire department doesn't put out the fire. They start the fire.
They start the fires.
Oh,
that's right.
So that song, "We Didn't Start the Fire," doesn't apply to them.
Anyways,
Nice.
It was a fascinating and engaging and enjoyable read, even with a bizarre premise like this. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury.
That sounds like Google and Facebook censorship. Prophetic was he. So, Nathan, do you have a book?
Yeah, I have a book here. I'm looking at Angels in the Architecture, a Protestant vision for Middle Earth. It was published by Canon Press. It was written by Douglas Jones and Douglas Wilson.
That was a good book.
Yeah, it's an incredible book. And basically what they're doing is, they're talking about a lot of stuff related to architecture in the church, and they're talking about the need for a good Protestant aesthetic.
Yes, and it was also kind of vision casting.
Yeah,
I think thinking about architecture post-millennially.
Yeah, and so what's cool about this book in the context of Moscow, Idaho, is that it was the copyright is 1998. And currently, I think they started their plans for building. It's a type of cathedral. I think they started that all in 2020, and that's going to be a pretty cool building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's excellent.
So maybe if we write a book on architecture now here in Grand Prairie, we can build a Protestant cathedral in Grand Prairie in 20 years.
We can. We have to remember, however, to insulate those walls sufficiently.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, that might, we'll definitely need natural gas.
We'll need stone and we'll need
oil.
R factor.
R factor.
That's right.
It'll look sort of like a Gothic cathedral with a 12-foot thick wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's insulation value.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Stephen Guilbeault can pay for the electric heating.
Well, he'll give us a heat pump, I'm sure. What a turkey. He doesn't even know what a heat pump is. Anyway.
Except we don't want Stephen Guilbeault in the architecture because that would be very different from having an angel in the architecture.
Well, he's no angel.
Currently no angel. I mean,
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. I mean, even communists can repent of sin.
That's true, yeah.
They're not beyond the pale yet. Okay, so my
Anyway,
book...
that diverged.
Well, any cathedral needs a gargoyle sitting on the top. So, the entire Liberal Party. Okay, so my book review. I've been reading through Justin Martyr's writing in preparation for a church history lecture I'm about to deliver. And the fellow is a very engaging writer. He's very direct. He's not full of the rhetorical flourishes and ornaments that you expect from a first century or second century writer. He's very straightforward, and I've been really enjoying rereading his apology to Antonius Pius. So he wrote an apology, not to apologize for anything, but to give a defense of the faith, and to try and get the Roman emperor to stop the persecution of Christians. On several grounds. One of the most prominent being that Christian doctrine and our Bible, our God, this is all true, and Jesus himself is the truth. And a good philosopher king, and you should recognize that language from Plato's Republic because all of our listeners have clearly read through Plato deeply. In Plato's Republic, the philosopher king or the guardian is kind of held up as this ideal, and much of the book has to do with a discussion of how to make the guardian, how to educate the guardian, what kind of qualities you look for, what kind of upbringing. So he speaks to the emperor, Justin Martyr does, in terms of the truth of the gospel, and he uses much of the language of Plato sort of to... in some cases, he's poking fun at the emperor, clearly, because he says, well, of course you agree with truth because you're a disciple of Plato. Mm-hmm. You call yourself a philosopher, you style yourself as such. And remember, Antonius Pius, his adopted son is Marcus Aurelius, who's a famous Stoic.
Right.
And his other adopted son, Verus, shared the imperial dignities with Marcus Aurelius until he died partway through the Marcomannic War. So these two guys, these sons, adopted sons, and the father, they styled themselves publicly as being philosophers like Plato. And so Justin Martyr's like, well, I'm a philosopher. Let's talk. Plato talked about truth, and what he didn't know is that Jesus is the truth, and you need to adopt this. You need to believe this. You need to live this. And by the way, Christians are great. We're awesome. We don't commit crimes, and we're not like notorious rebels. And he goes on to defend the faith against the accusations of the pagans, but also he begins the tradition of noting the pagan gods, setting them apart for mockery. And you see this in Augustine's City of God. It really comes to a full flowering, where Augustine is mocking the gods because they're patently foolish. And Justin Martyr, I think, is one of the first Christian philosophers who really takes that on as a project, and it's an enjoyable read. So his apology to Antonius Pius.
Right.
So if we were to mock the gods, I guess it's more like mocking pagan ideologies like secularism.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
We also, there are people who still worship false gods. I mean, and they're ripe for mocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah.
Absolutely.
I was just thinking about how old I must be. Because when I was a child, I played with Play-Doh.
Yeah, you're quite ancient. Dear listener, Jamie's about 2,700 years old. No, sorry, 2,400 years old.
Okay,
Wow.
all right.
My math was off. So Genesis.
He's like an elf.
Genesis. We are in Genesis chapter 42, I believe.
Yes.
We talked previously about Joseph in prison. We talked about him being set on high by Pharaoh. He's given a wife. His plans are begun to be enacted there in Egypt. And so now we've reached 42. Chapter 42 is where Jacob, the camera shifts back to Jacob at home in Israel in the midst of a famine. And Jacob speaks to his sons, and you can tell right off the hop things are not well in his relations with his sons.
Yeah,
You can tell right off the hop. He says, "Why do you look at one another?
yeah, what's wrong with you?
What are you standing there looking at one another for?"
Now, I've used this phrase myself.
I heard there's grain in Egypt. Go get some.
Yeah, that we may live and not die.
Yes.
Yeah, what are you looking at? I've definitely used that with my boys.
Yes.
Told them to clean up their room, and they're like standing there staring at me with this stunned look on their face. I don't know what a bedroom is, Dad. A mess. I don't see a thing. What are you looking at? Yeah.
Okay, so they're here. They are needing to go down to Egypt. I suspect that in and of itself was a terror to them. They set Joseph up for doing just that, going down to Egypt, and they never expected him to return alive.
And they've heard the stories about Abraham going down to Egypt and having nothing but trouble. Right?
Yeah, well, they probably heard more about what happened because having nothing but trouble turned into riches greatly for Abram later. But that really seems to need to be seen through the eyes of faith, and they were not looking through those eyes at that time.
Yeah. So all 10 of, well, not all of the brothers, but 10 of the brothers go down to Egypt. I find it interesting in verse 3, it says, so 10 of Joseph's brothers go down to buy grain. They're Joseph's brothers now.
Yeah.
They're not Jacob's sons, they're Joseph's brothers.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I find that interesting that that's said that way.
Right. It's in the midst
point,
of
yeah.
That is a good point. It's in the midst of these Joseph stories. Like there's 13 chapters of stories about Joseph that are all they're all sub stories in the broader Jacob story. See, Jacob rises in like Genesis 25.
Yeah.
And he dies in Genesis 49 or 50.
Yeah.
So really the whole arc of this is still it's all Jacob, but there's a large subset here now that's
Joseph.
That's Joseph.
Yeah, the focus is the relationship with Joseph.
And again, to step back and to think of this in the broad scheme of what is God doing? What is God doing? Well, he's been painting pictures of what is to come with his Messiah, and what is going to take place in the world, and he's painting pictures of this for people in the Old Covenant, and Joseph turns out very much to be a Christ character.
Yes.
Like he's a great picture of Jesus who is to come.
Yeah, he delivers his brothers from death.
Right.
Now,
Yeah, the sacrificial victim who through his sacrifice delivers
Yes.
Israel,
And
all of Israel.
And all his trouble came because of his brothers.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Jesus didn't die for his own sins. He came and died for the sins of his people.
Yeah. That's actually a really good typological point to note about Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so when it says that all 10 brothers go down, we've now got a case where Judah's back in the mix.
Yeah, Judah's back in the mix. Exactly.
Because remember, we talked last time about how Judah had kind of
separated.
He'd separated.
Yes.
Wandered off, done his own thing. 2 of his boys had died. Got his daughter-in-law pregnant.
Yeah.
He's having trouble.
Now,
His life is a mess.
I believe that this is my interpretation of the timeline. Judah is conscripted by Jacob to go down with these brothers, and it's right near the same time when this business happened with Tamar.
So this could be
very close to the same time.
This could be a part of. You could see this almost as a part of his repentance.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is. Judah says, she is more righteous than I, and he's been chastened and chastened and chastened, and he's coming back, and now he's heading down to Egypt. Well, that reminds him greatly of another brother that he did evil to,
who had to go down to
Egypt, and you can sort of start to sense the regret in him.
Mm-hmm. Especially, when we get to him later.
Yeah, when we get to him later, because he becomes a fellow who says, the havoc that we wreaked with our lie, the havoc that worked on Dad, and on us too. What an enormous trouble we brought.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do that again. If I had the chance. To do otherwise.
I'm doing otherwise.
I'm doing otherwise. And the Lord does give him that chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so verse 6, we've got Joseph is the governor of the land.
Yeah.
And he was the one who sold all of the people of the land. Or to all...
Sold two.
Small words mean big things. Yes. He sold all the people. No, he sold to all the people. So
it's all in the prepositions.
It's all in the grammar.
He sold out.
So Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him, right? Okay.
Right.
So now we've got a fulfillment of the prophetic dream.
Yes. Here comes these brothers.
Yeah.
And they bow themselves to this great man in charge of many things.
He would be quite terrifying, I think.
I bet.
I would be.
Egypt was the world power at this time, as far as I'm aware.
Mm-hmm. And they're the only guys with food.
And he's the guy in charge of it. If we're gonna get food from Egypt, we gotta go through this guy. He's really powerful.
Oh yeah, and he knows it, and we know it.
Yeah,
this is an unequal power dynamic.
Yeah, so here you see the sun, moon, and the 11 stars coming to bow down before him, which means that Joseph's brothers are almost like angels.
Ah, interesting.
Anyway,
that's an interesting thought.
Just a random biblical metaphor.
Well, it's not that random, but that is biblical.
No, it's not random. Yeah, it is biblical.
I like that. I'm going to think about that.
Yeah.
So they bow down. They don't recognize him, but he recognizes them.
Yes,
and he speaks roughly with them.
Yeah, it says Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamed of them. Didn't I dream this once?
Yeah,
that must have been a bit fun to speak a bit roughly with them after all of
probably was.
He also there was also probably an aspect there though of him being an Egyptian governor, and that's probably just how they would have spoken to.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine because he's got a lot of power, and these are just a bunch of shepherds.
I've heard people get after Joseph for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I have. I've heard people get after Joseph for his anger here and saying that he sinned in being angry with his brothers. Sometimes people interpret the story like everything's all completed already,
right?
And they don't. It's like they don't pay attention to the story or the storyline. They don't get it. Mm-hmm. They don't get it.
Yep.
So if his brothers didn't, because I do find it odd that he recognized his brothers and his brothers didn't recognize him, but that was probably because he was so young when he was sold into slavery.
Well, also because of his garments, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was wearing Egypt's officialdom, and that was the last place they would have expected to find him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they didn't expect to find him at all.
Yeah.
He looked like an Egyptian.
He looked like an Egyptian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you find what you look for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they come in, and he speaks roughly to them, and he's like, where do you come from? And they're like, from the land of Canaan to buy food. Okay, so they're telling the truth. He recognizes them, remembers the dreams, and he says to them, you are spies.
You are spies.
You have come to see the nakedness of the land, and you can see the panic in verse 10. No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food.
Right. And they offer information.
Yes.
They offer more information than he asks for.
Yes.
Because they talk about how they're the sons of one man from the land of Canaan. Behold, the youngest is this day with our father. Mm-hmm. So he didn't ask him about that.
Yep.
They proffered that information
Now there's
to demonstrate their honesty.
Yeah, no, there's something about that. When dealing with a bureaucrat, never pro-offer information. Just answer the question.
Exactly.
Okay, boys, this is straight up bad. I get your bad. I mean, an empty belly does make a man, do things in desperation. But when dealing with a bureaucrat, just no, bad. Answer the question.
Yeah.
But they do as demonstrations of their honesty, and they say we are honest men, right? Mm-hmm. Which is funny coming from them.
Well, I mean, they are being honest, right?
They're being honest about this, but Joseph knows right well
Yes.
how honest they've been in the past.
Yes, they're honest, and isn't that the way it is? Mm-hmm. A person can be honest. Even while they can be honest about some things while they're maintaining a deep lie.
Yeah.
And they're doing it at the same time.
Yep.
When we read their responses here, they really are being honest about the things that they're being talked about. And at the very same time, they really are maintaining their lie. Yep. But it's shaky. It's shaky, and it shows up in the passage here just how shaky it is, because that lie needs to be maintained particularly for Jacob's sake.
Yep.
Okay? Among these brothers.
Especially when Joseph pushes on Benjamin. He has to come.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa.
Yeah, well, their lie is maintained in order to keep Jacob in the dark. That's the only reason for that continuation of that lie.
Yep.
That's the only reason. And here they are. They're far from Jacob. Mm-hmm. And you can sort of tell from their dialogue when they're in prison. They haven't talked about this in a long, long time. Mm-hmm. Right. And they've all got really bad consciences over what
And
happened.
it comes up.
Yes, it does.
Well, stress is a marvelous tool for the discovery of the truth. Yeah. Yeah, they because Joseph he sends them into custody. I wonder if that was the same jail that he had been in. That would be funny.
Yeah. I bet it was because
how many jails would they have had?
Well, where do the king's prisoners go, and who's Joseph now?
Yeah,
he's second only to the king.
Yep. So they might have been in the same cell he had been in.
Yeah, Potiphar might have met all these guys.
Yeah, which would have been funny. I wonder if Joseph told Potiphar, "These are my brothers."
I wonder.
Rough them up a little bit, Joseph. This is funny. Do this and you will live, for I fear God. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine what the brothers would have thought hearing that from an Egyptian mouth. Mm-hmm. You fear our God, do you? What God are you talking about? Mm-hmm. We don't know what you're talking about.
I think they might have just accepted him as a Gentile God-fearer.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot at that time. Yep. You would run into the odd Gentile God-fearer.
I mean, in a previous generation, you had guys like Melchizedek just floating around.
Yeah, that's Abraham's generation.
Yeah. So he's like, if you are honest men. And now this is a third day thing. This happens on the third day. On the third day, Joseph said to them. So that's another one of those. We've pointed out several of these day 3 things.
Yeah.
So 3 days they sit in jail. And on the third day, he says, if you are honest men.
Third day of judgment happens.
Yeah, interesting. If you are honest men, let your brothers, one of your brothers remain in jail, and the rest of you go carry grain to your households, and bring your youngest brother to me, so your words shall be verified, and you shall not die. And they did so.
Right.
Yeah, and then the argument really kicks off in verse 21.
Yes, and they're doing this in the presence of Joseph. They're in his presence when they're.
Yeah, because we see in verse 23, they did not know that Joseph understood them, for there was an interpreter between them. So there's an interpreter. This entire conversation.
Yes, in truth, we are guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the distress of his soul, and when he begged us, and we did not listen, that's why this distress has come upon us. And Reuben is pointing fingers.
I told you.
I told you so.
Yeah. No, this is the drama is high.
Yeah, it is.
Why don't we have more movies on this?
That's right.
Because he's speaking through this interpreter. You can imagine the poor interpreter sitting there. These Hebrew shepherds are ferociously arguing. He's trying to figure out what they're talking about. Your boss is expecting you to interpret this argument. Meanwhile, your boss knows everything that's being said because he's the brother that they're talking about. And then he turns away and he weeps. He turned from them and wept.
Turner Video did a bunch of biblical videos back in the late 1990s, somewhere in there, early 2000s.
Okay.
And they did this. They actually got Joseph and Potiphar right.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, they did. I think Ben Kingsley played Potiphar.
I think I've seen that one.
And he said he came to the conclusion that his wife was really the one at fault and not Joseph.
I think I've seen that one.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing because Ben Kingsley also played Gandhi.
Right.
That horrible reprobate. But anyway, enough on him. So so this whole argument is happening in front of Joseph. He turns away and he wept. Yeah. And then he returned to them. So he left the room.
Yeah.
And they probably have no idea why he left the room.
Right.
He leaves the room. He comes back and he takes Simeon. So Simeon is Levi's compadre in chapter 34.
Yeah, Simeon's the second brother. Reuben's first. Reuben was not in favor of what the brothers did.
Yes.
But who was the brother next in charge? It would have been Simeon. Yeah. Because Simeon was second. Simeon and Levi. So he takes Simeon, this biggest of troublemakers, to him and puts him in prison.
And then he fills their bags with grain.
Yeah.
And puts their money back in their sacks, unbeknownst to them.
Okay.
And gives them provision for the journey.
Do you see here a long-term plan by Joseph?
Yeah, I do.
I do too.
And I think that him going away into the other room was him formulating the execution of that plan.
Yeah. How can I win these brothers?
Yeah.
How can I discern what these brothers are about?
Whether
Are they legit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have they repented?
have they changed?
Yeah. And so he's going to test them with money. Remember, Joseph was sold for money.
Right. And so they get to their lodging place. So what do they find?
Yeah. They find their money in their sacks.
Which I think is not so all of this work that Joseph is putting in to test his brothers, it's not a reason to critique Joseph and say, oh, Joseph is bitter. No. I think it actually teaches us something about what reconciliation, especially in the case of major sins, actually looks like.
I think so.
Like, I think Joseph here is an example for Christians in how to discern whether or not true reconciliation can happen.
Yes. I think you're right about that, Nathan.
Yeah, I think so too. And then I think it's in verse 28. I think that's Reuben speaking. I'm just
one of them. It says.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's one of them. He said to my brothers, "My money is put back," and At this, their hearts failed them.
Yes. Okay, this is because they had such guilty consciences over what had happened with Joseph. Every new thing, even what looks like a great blessing, is a threat.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. Everything is.
Yeah.
What is this that God has done to us?
Uh-huh.
God, it's your fault.
It's your fault we still have a whole bunch of money and grain.
Now, in the normal run of play, when I've got a lot of food and a lot of cash, I'm not sitting here blaming God. I'm thanking him. But
Except it looks like they stole.
it does. And
Yes.
They know this. Yeah. So then they get home, and you notice that they don't go back to Egypt with the money and be like, hey, there was an accounting error.
No.
They're like, I'm getting out of here. So they get out of there. They go to Jacob, their father, in the land of Canaan, and they tell him everything. This man, the Lord of the land, spoke roughly to us and took us to be spies, but we said we're honest men. We have never been spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our fathers. One is no more. Now, this is the first time they've
Mentioned this.
mentioned this since.
I bet it is.
Uh-huh.
I bet it is. They were trying to hide
Yeah.
from Jacob
Yep.
because every time you draw near on that subject,
Yeah.
every time you draw near, you're getting real close to the edge of where your lie is, and you don't want your lie discovered. So you can bet they didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
But this is a cracking of the armor.
Yeah, and then verse 34, he commands, bring your youngest brother to me, then I shall know you're not spies, but honest men, and I will deliver your brother, so that's Simeon, and you shall trade in the land. As they emptied their sack, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were afraid.
Right. So it was just one sack that was opened when they were on the way.
Yeah, and now it's every sack.
Now it's all of them before Jacob.
So imagine the panic of the first sack being opened on the road.
Yeah.
And now you've got 12 sacks or 10 sacks, potentially, and all that panic. Like the drama
Yes.
is
Yes.
high.
And they were afraid, it says.
There are some very heightened emotions here.
Oh, yeah, this is marvelous.
Now, please notice, Jacob is certainly suspicious of these boys. That long-term silence,
Right.
I think, has probably worked on him, and he's wondering what could have possibly happened to Joseph
Oh, yeah.
that nobody will talk about him.
Yeah.
Did they really hate him that bad that they won't reminisce
Right.
in his presence? Really?
Yep.
And Jacob has begun to be suspicious. And that suspicion about these brothers comes out right here. You have bereaved me of my children.
Yeah.
Who has bereaved you of you?
It's not the lion that, caught
brothers.
Joseph in the wilderness as in a previous chapter.
Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and now you would take Benjamin. You
Yeah.
pointed finger.
So Jacob here is probably wondering what's true and what's not true.
Yeah, you bet he is.
Yeah. I might have been born in the dark, but it was not last night. I've had this conversation with my kids before. I do not know what actually happened, but what I do know is that what you're saying is not it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Jacob. Remember Jacob. Jacob is now.
He's very old now.
He's old. He's 129 years old when this is happening. He's been through the school of wrestling and he's won. He's graduated, and the trouble that he faces post grad is great.
Yes, he's almost like a Job here.
Yeah. Yeah, this is another
Suffering story.
suffering story, a testing of Jacob. there are ways in which it seems to me, if ever you're going to point out failures in Jacob, this is probably where you'd look, in my thinking, just in terms of his practically despairing of, despairing of ever these things being resolved. I'm not sure. I don't know. Jacob is in such a really tough position. Yeah. Even still, he sends these brothers whom he doesn't trust. He sends them to Egypt. They come back with grain and with all the money they were sent with.
And Simeon gone.
And Simeon gone. And it looks to Jacob like they stole that money.
Yeah.
It looks like it. Right?
Yeah. And he's still got questions in the back of his head about Joseph.
Yes, and those questions come out of the front of his head. You have bereaved me of my children. You, my children, not just my child, not just Simeon.
Yeah.
And you would take Benjamin if you could. You.
Well, and then what's interesting is in verse 38, he almost disowns all of them when he says, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead and he is the only one left.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying, don't take Benjamin because he's the only one left. In other words, you're all gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess. Yeah, well, what are we, chopped liver?
Yeah. Because Reuben's response is pretty strong too, because he says, kill my two sons if I do not bring him back to you.
Yes, which Reuben proves himself to be a doofus.
Yeah, he's such a wild card.
Again and again, and here he does it again. As if this is going to make his father satisfied to kill a couple of his grandkids if things don't work.
Yeah, you can just imagine Jacob being like, well, that what?
Yes. And notice that there's no Jacob doesn't have any trust in Reuben. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have any trust in him. And he knows that he's given to saying stupid things. That seems to be the case. That seems to be the case because this is a real stupid thing to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like it's insensitive. It's blustering. It's Reuben.
He's a doofus, like you said.
Gotta smack him over the head.
Yeah. How old are you and you're still saying stupid things?
Right. Now, Reuben, of course, being the eldest, he's supposed to be the guy who takes the lead, but he proves himself again and again as being incapable of taking the lead.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure Jacob could have. I'm sure he saw that in the Shechem incident, because Reuben didn't take the lead. He didn't lead in righteousness. He didn't say, "Don't do this." He participated and followed.
He followed his brothers
in that situation.
Mm-hmm. He may not have taken the lead, but he definitely took advantage.
Yes.
Okay, so Jacob puts his foot down. No way are you taking Benjamin down to Egypt. I don't. The implication is I don't trust you guys.
You already killed two of my sons.
Yeah.
Yep. Now,
yeah.
Now the famine was severe in the land, so.
So all the grain that they brought back eventually
goes away,
dwindles. Mm-hmm. I doubt if it took too long.
Well, because there's a lot of people that they're feeding.
There's an awful lot of people that they're feeding. It's not just Jacob and his 12 sons. There's a whole huge community around them.
Yep.
How long is that grain gonna suffice?
Not very long.
how much can 12 men carry back on donkeys that is going to suffice for the community for any length of time? I don't think it was very long.
These guys really needed a like a big grain truck. But that was a few
Yeah, that was a ways off.
millennia in the future.
Okay, go buy a little food again.
Yeah.
And now
Judah speaks.
the real leader rises to the fore.
Yeah, I'm just thinking here about the relationship between Judah and his father and Jacob. Jacob must have had a greater trust in Judah than any other of the brothers, to some degree at least.
You know, I think that of all the brothers, Judah could empathize with his father better than any of them.
Yeah. He'd lost two sons.
He'd lost sons. He'd lost his wife.
Yeah.
He'd messed things up royally
Yeah.
and admitted it. Judah had.
And it's interesting too, because when Simeon says we have to go down to Egypt in the previous chapter, like we're going to have to go back there. Not Simeon, sorry, Reuben. When Reuben says it, Dad's like, no, absolutely not. Judah does talk him around.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, hunger is a tool that will persuade a man to change his mind, but Judah.
But Judah approaches this in a way. He approaches this in a way that he says, "I will bear. If I don't bring him back, I will bear the guilt before you all my life. But we got to go. You have to let Benjamin go." Judah talks him into it.
So rather than offering up his sons, he takes the responsibility on himself, which is a lot less of a doofus thing to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, like Reuben's poor sons are probably sitting there like, Dad,
Come on.
what did we ever do to you? Or what didn't we do to you? Like, come on, man.
What a jerk.
Yeah. But Judah, he's like, no, I'll take that on me.
Yes, I'll take the responsibility on you. You can hold me responsible if Benjamin doesn't come back. Yeah. Now here we have that second chance.
Yeah.
That Judah has. He blew it badly with Joseph, and he knows it, and he's not going to do that again.
Yeah.
I love this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really great. Yeah.
The restoration of this long wanderer, Judah.
And by taking responsibility on himself, Judah introduces the gospel into a story that has become very ungospelized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true. And he's sort of acting in a type of Christ, because he's taking the responsibility himself for the security of his brother.
Yeah.
And that's very much what Jesus did on the cross.
Yes.
He took on himself our penalty, but also he took responsibility for our salvation, our security.
For his brothers.
Yeah. For we, his brothers. So this is where, Judah's starting to act like Christ now.
Yeah.
So then
Jacob says, "Take also your brother and arise and go again to the man, and may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man." The man.
And he took
the dreadful
the man. So and then Israel, he's like, okay, if you got to go, take some choice fruits. And remember, this is during a famine, so there's not a lot of fruit to be had.
Right.
Yeah.
But they got some products of the land. They got some nuts.
Yeah.
They got some honey, gum, or balm.
A little balm, a little honey.
Yeah. It's not much.
A little balm?
A little balm.
No, not that kind of balm. Here's Israelis going to Egypt with balm.
Now
It's probably not lip balm either.
No, they haven't taken bombs down there since '73. So, yeah, let the listener understand. So, and then he says to take. Here I am making all right 20th century war jokes. So he says take double the money with you. Okay, so they're taking extra money.
Yeah,
the money that
really belongs down there. Take it back.
Yeah. Perhaps it was an oversight. It's like, that's a stretch, but okay, we're desperate. And take also your brother, go to the man, as he said, the man. And as for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved.
Yeah. Jacob had to come to that place. And that was a tough place to come to. But he had to put the survival of the camp ahead of his own family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there was some real application to that principle in the COVID times. That I remember drawing from this that you need to look out for the well-being of the church. You need to do so ahead of your own personal safety.
Right.
You know, personal safety is not the be-all and end-all. Obedience to God is the be-all and end-all.
Yeah.
That's really what God wants.
Yeah, and personal griefs are difficult to bear. Like that's a true thing. But if you let your personal grief overtake your duties, that isn't good. That's also another application that I've thought about often in various seasons of life when you're grieving over some loss or something like that. You can't be so stuck in your grief that you forget to do your basic duties. Yeah. And that's not an easy thing.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Not easy at all. But the men took the present, and they took Benjamin.
Yep.
Now, they took, I don't know why. Maybe it's just me. I always had an image of them taking back money in a sack, and Benjamin in a sack. I don't know.
They stuck Benjamin in a sack and took him to
With his
Egypt.
head poking out the top. I don't know. When I was young, I had this image. I don't know why. So, yeah, well, Now, verse 16. Yeah, Joseph sees Benjamin.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the first time Joseph sees Benjamin.
Ever.
Ever.
That's right.
Yeah, because he would have been gone when Ben was born.
He was long gone before Benjamin was born.
Yep. So
Benjamin was born after the Shechem thing, and the Shechem thing happened when Dinah was,
late
who knows,
teens
late or mid-teens.
So
Dinah would
Joseph's-
have been 12 when Joseph went to Egypt.
So Joseph's mother died without his knowledge then.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't know. So he sees his brother for the first time, and he talks to the steward of his house. Bring the men into the house and slaughter an animal, make ready. These men are to dine with me at noon. So this is in the morning sometime.
Yeah.
We're going to have lunch. And so the steward did what he was told. And the men are afraid.
Yes, they're afraid because here's something new and different.
They're going
and
in-
every new and different thing terrifies them because they've got guilty consciences.
And they're going into the prime minister's house.
Well, and Joseph is acting kind of weird.
It's acting weird. It's true.
Yeah. Like, why? How many other nomads from Canaan got an invite to lunch in the prime minister's palace?
I'd be a little bit weirded out if I was walking through Ottawa and then all of a sudden Justin Trudeau was like, "Hey, you should have dinner with me in my house.
Come for lunch.
I'm not sure if I'd be afraid. I'd just be like, what's going on?
I would be very afraid.
I would.
Yeah,
too.
maybe.
Maybe I have a guilty conscience.
No, I'd just be afraid for my safety. I know that holiness goes from Christ out into the world in the new covenant, but I'd be afraid still of getting dirty in that house. Anyway, so they're going into the house, and they're talking. Remember the argument that they had the last time,
Right.
Now they're continuing the argument.
Yeah,
It's
they're-
because of the money that was put in our sacks,
They're constantly arguing with each other.
especially in Joseph's presence.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, because they don't understand that he knows their language.
Exactly. So they're arguing.
Of course.
He's invited us over to dinner so that he can,
Yeah, and so they come back now and they talk to the steward and they explain what happened. You know, we don't know how that money got back in our sacks. We didn't take it, so we've brought it here again.
Yeah.
And he says, peace to you. Do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has put treasure in your sacks for you. I received your money. And then he brings out Simeon to them.
Yeah. The poor guys.
What a puzzle. What a puzzle that would have presented.
So why is the steward talking to us about God and our Father? And there's Simeon. Yeah. And peace. I don't get it. And they wash their feet. He feeds the donkeys.
There's a foot washing.
There's a foot washing in here.
Cool.
Yeah. And
So many images of Christ.
oh, yeah, because we've got Christ washing the feet of his disciples.
Because I'm even thinking of like the eating together and the feasting. It's not really the prodigal father and the prodigal son, but there's something almost like.
It's like the Last Supper with Jesus and his 12 disciples.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you've got
Sort of.
you've got 12 of them, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and so they come into the house. Their donkeys are fed,
Yeah.
and it says their donkeys are fed. It kind of reminds me of Abraham and Abraham's servant.
Yes, they were afraid a few moments ago that their donkeys are going to be stolen from them.
And now they're being fed, and then
Yeah.
Joseph comes home. So he's gone out, maybe gone down to the office to do some work.
Yeah.
And they brought in the present that they brought for him. So that little bit of balm, little bit of honey, a little bit of gum. And then,
And he asks them about
yeah,
their father. Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke.
yeah.
So he's playing the game
Oh, yeah, he is.
here.
This is just marvelous stuff.
Is he still alive? And they said, your servant, our father, is well. He is alive. And they bowed their heads and prostrated themselves again. So and it brought their father into it.
Yes.
Remember that second dream?
And they brought their brother. Remember how many stars it was, right? It was 11.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the cool thing.
Yes.
He lifted his eyes up and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son. Is this your youngest brother of whom you spoke to me? God be gracious to you, my son. And then Joseph hurries out, for his compassion grew warm for his brother, and he sought a place to weep. So he's never seen this son of Rachel, his mom, before.
So he goes back to his bedroom for a good old ball. Yeah. And just imagine his poor wife.
Yeah.
Does she know what's going on? I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if he talks to her about these things. I bet he does.
He probably
did.
But she's probably sitting there like, man up, get out there. Be a man, Joseph, be a man. But so he hurries out because of his warm compassion. Like that's a marvelous statement. Warm compassion.
His compassion grew warm.
Yeah. Is that not Christ and us?
Yeah. Well, and even the weeping is Christ-like.
Yeah.
There's a place in the prophets somewhere where, or maybe it's in Judges, where the people repent after God has been saying, well, you guys are not walking uprightly. The people repent. And it says of God that it says something like this of him.
That he repented.
That he was, his compassion grew warm to them, or something of that nature is spoken about
Interesting.
Israel when they repent.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I think it's in Judges. I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
So Jeremiah 31, God is talking about Ephraim. Is Ephraim my dear son? Is he my darling child? For as often as I speak against him, I do remember him still. Therefore my heart yearns for him. I think it's the same word for grew warm.
Yeah.
I will surely have mercy on him, declares the Lord.
So then he washes his face, comes out, and controlling himself. So this took serious effort.
It took serious self-control.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Serve the food. So they serve him by himself, and then by themselves.
Yeah.
And the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves.
Yes.
Okay, so there's, I don't know, 3 separate tables?
Yeah, I think
Something
so.
like that?
They weren't like family meals.
Yeah. They were
Must not have been a thing in Egypt.
yeah, those poor Egyptians.
It became that, I think, in the Christian era.
Yeah.
When Christians learned to feast together at the table, and it started to work its way into family homes. Because if I recall rightly, you didn't do that in Rome either.
Yeah.
Romans ate in separate places. They didn't eat together as a family.
Yeah, the men would eat, the women would eat.
Yeah, the what is now the traditional family meal together only became traditional in the Christian era.
And because of the Lord's table.
And because of the Lord's table. I believe that to be the case.
Yeah. No, I think historically, that's 100% provable.
So they sit together before Joseph according to their birthright, but they get food according to Benjamin's birthright. Well, maybe not birthright, but
Okay, now put yourself now in Levi's shoes or one of the brothers.
Right.
He looks around the table, and they're all in order according to age.
And who told this Egyptian? Yeah.
And they're terrified.
Oh, yeah.
They're again terrified. What does this guy know? How does he know?
And then portions are taken. This is another thing. It also typifies the Lord's table. Portions were taken to them from Joseph's table, so they were served his food.
Yeah,
right. And that again is a sign of high favor.
yeah.
You don't do that unless you're demonstrating favor, but it's also a sign of the Lord's table.
Right.
But Benjamin, like you said, his portion was 5 times as much.
5 times as much. Goodness. If they all ate their fill, what Benjamin's plate must have been like this.
Now, granted,
he must have been a
Benjamin,
big man.
granted, Benjamin was younger, right? So he's probably still got that appetite.
Yeah, he's got that teenager appetite.
Yeah.
Maybe he's
Maybe.
ravenous.
I remember when I was in my 20s, I could way out eat myself now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they drank and were merry with him. So, okay, they're finally having a good time.
Yeah.
Then he chapter 44, verse 1. Then he commands the steward of his house, fill the men's sacks with food as much as they can carry. Like he's just overflowing again with goodness. Put each man's money in the mouth of his sack. So he's doing it to them again.
Yeah.
And
Now comes the real test.
but with a twist. And put my cup, the silver cup. There's a very specific cup.
The silver cup.
That one.
That one.
Yeah. In the mouth of the sack of the youngest with his money for the grain. He's like, I've set these boys up.
And then you get the testing, like that, the end of verse 4 where Joseph says, "Why have you repaid evil for good?" He's really digging it in what they did.
Yes.
He sends after the men. They'd only gone a short distance.
Yeah. This is the next morning. They must have had a good night.
Yeah, they must have. Yeah, they drank
because they had this good time and nothing seemed to go wrong with
and they have Simeon.
And Simeon's back.
Yeah. So there's no problem.
Oh, yeah.
And they haven't checked their sacks. These guys got to stop leaving Egypt without having inspected their cargo. I'm just saying.
Sure, yeah.
Prudence. Fool me once, but no, this is twice. So
yeah, actually, that's a good point.
So Joseph says to his steward, "Up, follow after the men, and when you overtake them." Now, there's another time when a bunch of Hebrews are chased by an Egyptian authority as they go this direction
toward the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
So this is like the
that happens later.
Yeah, this is sort of like an Exodus, but not quite.
Well, it is a lot like an Exodus.
Yeah. It's like a proto-Exodus.
Yes. There's a number of proto-Exoduses in Genesis.
There are, yeah, and we've covered a few of them. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting to me because they've got the silver cup that Joseph mentioned, plus the gold, the money. So they're plundering Egypt, like Moses did later.
Yeah,
but not quite because this Lord of the Egyptians catches up to them. Why have you repaid evil for good? Is not this that which my Lord, or from which my Lord drinks, and by this that he practices divination?
Right.
You have done evil in this.
Yes. Oh, maybe that's how he knew how to put all the people in order, was by divination.
Yeah, so Joseph's just playing these guys like a fiddle. Yeah, his magic is good.
Yeah, I think so.
And so the brothers are like,
and they say,
"What?
No, we're honest. We wouldn't. How would we steal silver or gold from our Lord's house.
Yeah,
And then they say this, whichever of your servants is found with it shall die, and we also will be my Lord's servants.
Yeah, they are convinced of their innocence.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, we told you that we brought the money back.
But you didn't check your sacks.
And you saw it. You saw it. We brought it back.
And you said it was fine. You said.
Right.
How would we do this?
Let it be as you say. He who is found with it shall be my servant, and the rest of you shall be innocent. Okay, well, they just offered, we'll all be my Lord's servants.
Yeah. Because they really do.
He says, nah, just one. Just one.
Just one. Yeah. Well, one shall do. So then each man quickly lowers the sack. So they're quick. And they open the sack. And beginning with the eldest and ending with the youngest. So these guys are finding their money back in their sack. And they're like, well,
Their troubles that they thought were gone last night, they're not gone.
But the cup's not in Reuben's sack.
No.
And then it's not in Levi's sack. And then it's not in Simeon's sack. And then it's not in Judah's sack. And it's not in Dan's sack. And Naphtali's probably sitting there like, it's not in his sack. Okay, Asher, not in his. And you get down to Benjamin. Ta-da.
Ta-da.
Looky here.
Then they tore their clothes.
Yes, as one should in this case.
I probably would tear my clothes in a
Yes.
situation like that.
Oh, yeah. So every man loaded his donkey and they returned to the city.
What a heartache.
High drama.
Because I think in this situation, and this proves it again, is they through this whole process, I think they're beginning to feel bad for their father.
Yeah.
They saw how their father basically held them back from going back to Egypt at the expense of the whole camp, and then finally acquiesces. And I'm sure that's already been moving within their hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they turn around. Now Judah takes the lead again. When Judah and his brothers, it's Judah and his brothers.
It's Judah and his brothers now.
So he was still there. So Joseph hadn't gone to work that day. So they fell before him to the ground. Joseph said to them, "What did you do? Didn't you know that a man like me can practice divination?" So he's still...
I don't need that cup. I was just tricking you.
Yeah. and then Judah's like, well, what are we going to say to you? We got nothing to say. How can we clear ourselves? God has found out the guilt of your servants. So now Judah's confessing guilt.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Both we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also in whose hand the cup has been found. But Joseph said, far be it from me that I should do so. Only the man in whose hand the cup was found shall be my servant, but the rest of you go in peace to your father. And then Judah went up to him. So Judah approaches him. So there's a liturgical separation there, as you would expect. And Judah goes to him. I can imagine him throwing himself at his feet, and he starts begging for Benjamin.
And he offers himself to stay in Benjamin's place.
Yes.
Which is a Christ-like thing to do.
And he recounts the entire story, placing special emphasis on his father's grief.
Yes, his brother is dead. See, Judah's convinced that
he's probably
Joseph
dead by now.
is dead.
He's got to be dead by now, right? Yeah. And he lays out the whole story.
Yeah.
And we're back, and we're talking about Joseph again being torn to pieces. Surely he has been torn to pieces, and I've never seen him since. If you take this one also, talking about Benjamin, and harm comes to him, you'll bring my gray hairs to evil and Sheol. Now, therefore, right? So he comes to the conclusion of his story. As soon as I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, then as his life is bound up in the boy's life, as soon as he sees that the boy is not with us, he will die, and your servants will bring down the gray hairs of your servant, our father, with sorrow to Sheol. For your servant, he's talking about himself, became a pledge for safety for the boy. So please, let me stay, send him back.
How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me?
Yeah.
So that is the mark of somebody who truly has had a change in attitude,
Yes.
in character.
Yes, it is.
Oh, and it's marvelous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Like the drama is magnificent.
It is. Yeah.
Now, remember when Joseph could control himself earlier in the story? Yeah, and now he loses it all. He could not control himself. And he cried, "Make everyone go out from me." So there was nobody there
Except
for his
them.
brothers. He weeps aloud, and the Egyptians can hear it. And the household of Pharaoh heard it. So his house is close to Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Like everybody can hear this. And they're not sure what's going on. But come near to me, please, he says. And then they came near. And he said, yep. Oh, I am Joseph. Is
Yeah,
my
he
father
says,
alive?
I am Joseph.
I am Joseph. And you can just imagine. And they could not answer him. Well,
They
no
were
kidding.
dismayed in his presence.
Can't imagine them just all growing white in the face.
Oh, yeah. Just the stunned silence. You could have heard a pin drop.
And you can bet those dreams that they got after him occurred to them right about then.
Right about
too.
then, yeah.
Because those dreams already have been fulfilled. They've done all the bowing and
Yes.
They've
they
done it
can't
all.
really change it anymore.
Yeah, they cannot undo that, yeah.
Well, and they're probably wondering if Joseph is going to kill all of them for what they did.
Yeah, and which you would expect.
Right.
Yeah.
Come near. They come near. It's almost you almost get this sense of terror and hesitation. We don't want to come near. And then he says, don't be distressed or angry because of what you did to me. For God sent me before you to preserve life. Right? There's 2 years of famine thus far, 5 more to come. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on the earth and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. Marvelous.
So now that this has been revealed, go back and tell my father about this. Tell him that I'm ruling over all of Egypt. And don't tarry. Just get everybody to move down here. This is where there's food. You guys shouldn't need to be running back and forth. Come here, and I will provide for you because there's still 5 years of famine to come. Now, you guys, I'm not fooling with you. You can see it. You can see it with your eyes. My brother Benjamin, he sees it. This is my mouth that speaks to you. Hurry and bring him down here. And then he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept. And Benjamin wept upon his neck.
Yeah.
Here's this brother. I bet he probably hasn't heard a lot about his brother except from mom and dad.
Yep.
And the rumor that he was killed by animal.
Well, it wouldn't have been mom even because mom died in childbirth.
Yep.
So the only one who would have told Benjamin about Joseph
Would have been his dad.
would have been his dad.
Yep.
And that was like before you were born, dude.
Yeah. And then it says that he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them, and then that his brothers talked with him. So that conversation must have been something.
It must have been something.
Sort of like Jesus on the road to Emmaus. Explained everything. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've gone on for an hour and 7 minutes thus far.
Yeah.
Should we continue on in the story, or should we pick this up?
Well, let's see. Where are we? We're
can
in
finish chapter
Genesis
45.
We can finish 45,
Yeah.
I think.
Because 45 comes to a nice end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes these chapter divisions are helpful,
Right.
sometimes not. So Pharaoh hears this, and he hears about this, and he's very pleased, and so are all of his servants. So Pharaoh says,
Because everything Joseph does pleases them.
yes, he's omnicompetent. I like that word. He's amazing.
Yes, and not just that, but he was right.
Yes.
He was
Very
right. And Joseph being right about that and being set in position as he was in Egypt tells you something deep and strong about what happened with Egypt. Egypt bowed the knee readily to God's Messiah, as it were.
They did.
Joseph is the one sent by God to rescue Egypt, and Egypt knows it, and they are thankful, which is a picture of what God intends for the world, where the nations of the world will bow the knee to King Jesus happily. Hasn't happened yet,
But it's happening.
it's happening.
Yeah.
It has happened in times and in places. But I think the Lord gives us to expect that this is the future of the world.
Yeah. And Pharaoh goes really above and beyond even what Joseph had offered his brothers. I mean, Joseph offers the land of Goshen, and Pharaoh offers the fat of the land. Have no concern for your goods, for all the land of Egypt is yours. So he's like you said.
Take back wagons. That'll show them.
Yeah. Take back empty wagons and bring everything with you on your way back.
And one thing that I'm looking at is verse 22, where it says that he gave to Benjamin 300 shekels of silver and 5 changes of clothes. What's up with that 5?
Again, 5. Well, he had a 5-fold meal, so I think he needs the 5 sets of clothing to fit.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
How many shekels of silver is that again? 300?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many shekels was
They
Joseph's?
sold them for 30, didn't they?
So
And so he gives 10 times as much to Benjamin.
yeah, so that's his price per brother that sold him. There were 10 brothers that sold him.
There you go.
They got 30 in total.
Yeah.
Now he's giving back
And Benjamin got it all.
30 for
Benjamin
each.
got it all.
And Benjamin, that's something.
That's
Oh,
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, there's something there. And he sends 10 donkeys loaded with all the good things of Egypt to his father, 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and provision for the journey. And as they depart, what does Joseph say to them? What does he say?
Don't quarrel on the way.
Don't fight.
Yeah, no fighting on the way home. Joseph knows his brother.
Yes, he does know them, and he's watched them in action, in their own language, in his presence, arguing with one another.
Yes.
He took a last shot at them.
Yeah. You know he's a good brother when he gets his dig in. No fighting. So they go up out of Egypt to the land of Canaan, and they tell him Joseph is still alive and he is the ruler over Egypt. And his heart became numb, for he did not believe them. But when they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said to them,
Heart became numb.
yeah.
What an amazing thing.
I would have.
What an amazing thing to Jacob.
Yes.
Jacob's had like almost nothing but bad news for years.
Yeah. So there.
And here comes news that is beyond his wildest hopes.
But the boys now have to confess their original
They
sin.
have to confess it. That's exactly right.
So, Dad, Joseph, we sold that guy. Remember him? We sold him, and he's ruling Egypt. And he says, "Come on, that's just crazy."
This is just an amazing, amazing business.
I'm surprised that Jacob just didn't have a heart attack right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I would have.
What did it say about his heart? It became numb.
Maybe that is a heart attack, for he did not believe them. So they tell him everything, and then he sees the wagons and all the stuff, and then he kind of comes to.
Yes.
And he says, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go see him before I die."
The fact of his brothers actually now talking, and they would have had to confess.
Yep.
They had to
Yeah.
at this point.
You cannot.
Because
hide
there's
anymore.
no explanation anymore for why Joseph is the ruler of Egypt. There's no decent explanation. I mean, Joseph's going to tell him if Jacob comes down to Egypt, Joseph's going to say, "Okay, well, how do you get to Egypt, son?" Well, the story's out,
Yeah.
right? And so they have to confess.
Might as well.
They have to.
You have to. Yeah. Yeah. It would be no good to get down to Egypt and then be standing there Dad, Joseph. So, yeah. That's not where you want to explain that.
Right.
Yeah. So he revives, his spirit revives.
Yeah, the spirit of their father Jacob revived.
And he's like,
oh, good.
I'll see him and then I can die. So
I love the character of Jacob in the scriptures, but boy, has he ever had it hard.
Yes.
In the last several chapters. Mm-hmm. He's had a really hard time.
Yep.
And here God revives him.
Mm-hmm. And here, it's funny to me, but he's, you know how he was renamed Israel way back in the way back?
Yeah.
We've got, it switches back and forth. It toggles back and forth between Jacob and Israel.
Yeah.
When he speaks or when he moves, he's Israel. When somebody's talking to him, he's Jacob.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's a good point.
And Israel said,
Yes.
it is enough.
Yeah.
Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die.
It's almost like a magisterial proclamation. He's making a judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ex cathedra.
Quite. Without the cathedral.
He was one of the first bishops. Oh. No. We're not going to get into that.
Yeah. Okay. So
That's Davidic succession.
So, as we're looking at the grand scheme, as we're looking at what is God doing, and we see here the reconciliation that God intends for the world. You know, Paul preaches and he says, you know, we come preaching to you and we're pleading with you to be reconciled to God in Corinthians. Reconciliation. This is the great picture in the Old Testament, in the Old Covenant, of reconciliation. It's a picture, again, God paints this of something that is to come in the Messiah. And as we go along, as we finish off Genesis, there's an unmistakable air of heaven, of glory, that they come into as they finally come and settle in Egypt. And again, that's foreshadows. That's a foreshadowing thing of what we have to expect of the future. And it's just fascinating to me how God, this is the setup to the beginning of the nation of Israel, who was God's special people to the world that were supposed to show forth the glories of God to the world. They were supposed to be pictures to the world of the Messiah. They were supposed to be, through Israel, people were to look at Israel and look at their laws and to say, what God is there that is so great as he's given you, the God that's given you these laws.
Yep. To lighten the Gentiles.
And they are to be, they're to eventually bring forth the one who's going to save the world. You know, and God intended that through this whole nation of Israel. And this story is really the first place where Israel becomes a thing. Israel really becomes a thing when they stop being at odds with one another, when they stop lying to one another, and they start walking in faith, seeing and delighting in the good gifts of God. This is really the start of that in the scriptures, where Israel really starts to come together as they gather together and they head down to Egypt.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So
It's an incredible story.
It is a wonderful story.
It is. So we might have one more episode of the Genesis.
I think we can do it in one now.
Possibly, maybe.
46 to 50.
I think we can.
I think we can.
I think
4 chapters.
We better.
We better.
Yeah.
So
We could even do Genesis 46 to Exodus 1.
we could, but here's the thing. When we go to Exodus, right, I want to make sure that we are careful not to promise our listeners an overview. When we get to
Yeah, because we kind of did promise them an overview.
Yeah. So I firmly believe in setting expectations in a reasonable place. And I think we're going to slow crawl through Exodus.
So on the podcast, you want me to call this like a Bible study rather than an overview?
Well, I don't know. Maybe what we could call it is a leisurely stroll at a pace dictated by our women fancy.
A lot of flower sniffing and a lot of pulling. And
Quite.
Okay.
Yes. Right. I mean,
All right.
we'll spend an entire episode on pomegranate sewn into the hem of the high priest's robe, I'm sure. And another episode on the bell. And, that they stitched the collar so that it would not tear.
yeah,
Right. And,
that's important.
that is important.
Perfection.
But did you study that in your Bible study on Exodus? Well, we will.
Yeah.
At length. Ad infinitum.
We do know that there is enough material in the scriptures to keep us going
Oh, quite.
week by week by week for the rest of our days.
Yes.
So anyways, we do intend eventually to head to Exodus. I think we'll have one more
I think so.
in Genesis. That I perceive that to be the case. We should be able to finish.
Our current pacing, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are the Chinook Podcast. We are delighted to be able to share this conversation with you all. We love these scriptures. We love these stories that God gave us. We know that they're not the Word of God emeritus. They are, in fact, living and active and valuable for taking down strongholds. They are valuable for reproof, for correction, for training in righteousness. Mm-hmm. So we commend to you our series on Genesis, and we'll continue to do these walks through Bible with you. And I hope this becomes a blessing and a help to all of you. So do hit the subscribe button and share this podcast around. It's been our delight to be able to converse with you all.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.